great over. Look at that. Double wicket maiden from the skipper. None for two.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Double Wicket Maiden podcast. I have with me today a very special guest. Iman, my co host, is not here today because we're venturing out from the world of cricket and we're going to be exploring completely uncharted territory. We're going to be talking about baseball, and I'm sure, like most of you listening in, you're not too familiar with the sport, but it's okay. It's never too late to learn. I know I'll be learning today. I have with me Amir Asghar, who plays for the Pakistan baseball team. He's the pitcher. I'm not too familiar with this sport, and I've told Amir that already. But I'm eager to learn, and I think so are you all. So I'll just open the floor to Amir. How are you, Amir? How have you been doing? What's been up?
I'm doing well. I flew into Chicago from my home state of Florida a couple days ago to meet with the rest of the Pakistani team because we have a friendly against Palestine this Saturday. And it's really nice to link up with the guys again because most of us haven't seen each other since Panama for the World Baseball Classic. And that was, I want to say like 10 months ago, 11 months ago. So it's nice seeing the guys again.
Right. So that's very interesting because I think in Pakistan, the kind of cultural context that sports is played here, and I'll take the example of cricket. I'm sorry if I do that a lot, but cricket is the biggest sport here. The guys, they play for the national team and then they play for leagues around the world, but they're almost always together. So the kind of camaraderie that they have, it's I think it's very easy to understand why they have it because they spend too much time together, right? Probably 9 months out of the year they are together in one way or the other. So I do want to ask you, how does that work with you guys? Because like you said, if you're spending a lot of time apart, how does, and I'm sure it happens in like any team sport, the camaraderie and the team building is very important for you guys too. So how does that happen? How does the squad manage to stay together with all the time that you guys spend apart?
Well, I see it sort of like how international football is. So, like, the players will go off to their own respective club teams during like the regular season, and then during the off season, the international competitions are played, and that's where you would meet up with the rest of your national team teammates.
Right. So you'll have to walk us through with baseball, what does your season look like for an average player like yourself? Because I'm sure you play for Pakistan, but you, like you said, you play for other teams too. So how does your average season look like? Your off season and your on, I don't know what you call it, but your game season and your off season, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So I just graduated from playing NCAA Division I baseball. So this is kind of how like the breakdown for that goes. During the fall, you would do something called fall ball, and that's more of like team practices, like getting to know like your other teammates at the beginning of the year. And that usually goes from August to November or December. And then right around January, middle of January, the spring season will start. And that's when actual games will be played. And that runs up until conference tournaments and NCAA playoffs, which is in June. And then after that, most players will go to a summer collegiate league. For example, like the Cape Cod League or the Northwoods League, where it's a sort of independent teams having players from all over the country, all over the world, just come and play for one summer.
Right. So I think like from what you mentioned, and I'm sorry if I'm a bit, cross about it, but it feels like a lot of your season is still based in America or the USA or North America. So I think that brings it to my next question, which is something that I had in my mind when I reached out to you guys because I was curious about something. With a game like baseball, it's relatively very not unpopular, but I think people are not familiar with it as much in, say, Pakistan. So for you guys to be playing it and for you guys to be doing so well, what are some of the challenges that you feel while playing for the national when you're playing in the national colors? Like I know for the cricket team again, one of their biggest whenever they win something, one of the biggest things that they say is that, oh, our fans or the audience has been our 12th man. So I think it plays a huge part when you know that an entire country is backing you up. And I know that I was looking through your guys have won a lot of games, and like you've won some stuff. You're doing great. I think you're the best in South Asia. I think you guys are doing pretty well with the West Asian games too. So like, how does it? What are some of your biggest challenges, and what are you trying to do as as a team or as a board to build that interest up? I know it's not you don't owe it to the people to bring them to the game, but if what are your thoughts on it? I'll throw it open to you.
Oh no, I love baseball. I think baseball is one of the best sports ever created, and I think that it has really high likelihood of being popular all around the world. Um, like you mentioned, when we were in Panama, the fans who traveled and supported us, they really were our like 10th player essentially. Like it was awesome, like getting off the mound and just seeing waves of people cheering for you. It was definitely something I'm never going to forget. But I think one of the biggest challenges would be uh, just due to how new baseball is in Pakistan. It's a very young sport, and that it takes time to develop at home. For example, like the Federation just built a baseball academy. And I think that's going to be very beneficial because now there's an actual playing surface that people can learn the actual game on rather than a cricket ground that's been repurposed for baseball.
Right. That just very seamlessly into my very next question. What do you think is the future of baseball in Pakistan? And this can be like however you want to imagine it or what you see happening. You can give up what your thoughts are on it, what you would want to happen, or what you think realistically would happen, whatever. Like, what do you think is the future of baseball in Pakistan?
I think the future is very, very bright. Like I said, like it's a very young sport in Pakistan. And I think one of the biggest like goals that the guys on the team should have now is to sort of be an inspiration for the younger kids back in Pakistan. Like, for example, there was an Indian American player drafted to the Toronto Blue Jays this year. And that's a really big deal. It's the first Indian American ever drafted. And I would love to see a Pakistani American or a Pakistani get drafted because that would just open up the doors to everybody being interested in baseball and potentially even playing professionally.
Yeah, I mean, even with for a layperson like myself, I think sitting in Pakistan, if I'm very frank, I would not be very interested in watching baseball, but there is something about watching someone like you playing the sport, and I think that does attract the game. So I would love to see a Pakistani American play for the game. I'm not too sure if I can speak for everyone, but I know that I have a very soft heart for whenever one of our guys is playing. So I definitely tune in just to support them. So I think that also plays a big part in expanding the game. And speaking of that, I think diversity generally is very important, and I think that would be my next question. You played for like you said, you played for a couple of teams. How does diversity and generally representation in teams that are not necessarily dominated by, for example, brown people come into play for you as a brown person playing in America?
That's actually a really good question. So I was fortunate enough to attend two historically Black colleges during my time playing baseball, Bethune-Cookman University and Florida A&M. And those two experiences really opened my eyes to how diversity can be really beneficial to a team sport. Just seeing people that look like you, like across the locker room, you're just feeling a little more comfortable with yourself. Another thing with diversity is differing perspectives. Like one person may have different life experiences that like have taught them certain ways to practice or like train or recover for baseball that you might not have ever heard of before, just because you don't have that perspective.
Right. Again, because I'm totally unaware of the sport and how it's come to, I'll have to move it to a little technical side because I have a lot of questions. For someone who's interested in baseball, how do you get into this sport? What are the steps for anyone listening? If they want to play pro, where do they go? If they're living in Pakistan, for example, because I know it's relatively easier in America because you guys have leagues there and junior leagues. I'm not too sure. Again, you'll have to forgive me if I'm wrong. But for someone listening in Pakistan, they want to play. Where do they go? Who do they contact? What do they do?
For people living in Pakistan, the big thing would be contacting Mr. Shah, the president of the federation, because it is his life's mission to grow baseball in Pakistan. And I've seen that for almost 5 years at this point, because I was fortunate enough to be selected for 2 World Baseball Classic rosters. So I've seen how much effort he's putting in and how much he really cares. And that's very admirable. So
for the other side of the game, I know you guys have, like, what are your training regimens? I'll need to, I'll try not to go too technical because I don't know the level of expertise that you would want to share, but what does your training routine look like for everything?
All right. So during the season, since I'm a pitcher, I don't try to weight lift too much because just pitching puts enough strain on the body as is. I try to more focus on recovery during the season. So that would mean hitting, when in the weight room, I'd be hitting higher sets and higher reps as opposed to heavier weight. And in terms of baseball practice and stuff during season, there's a particular throwing program that I personally like to follow. Again, everybody's different. Everybody's arm is different. So you just have to find something that works for you. But I just find long tossing 3 times a week. I know you don't really understand what that means, but it's essentially really trying to throw as far as you can. Right. And I think that's one of the biggest ways to increase how hard you can throw.
Yesterday, when I was reading up on the game, I read this article that said that baseball is being used to mend ties, diplomatic ties between India and Pakistan. And I think, if I'm not wrong, an Indian and Pakistan game, I think Indian team came to Pakistan or something like that. I might be forgetting. I have horrible memory. So I won't keep it too focused on Pakistan or India. But what do you think developing baseball as a sport in Pakistan would help deliver for Pakistan in ways other than just, sports? So it can be culturally, politically. I mean, of course, we've seen how cricket has done that for Pakistan, but for a sport like baseball, which is so dominant in the Northern Hemisphere, what do you think it should or could do?
One potential benefit of growing the game in Pakistan would be potentially tourism coming in to watch Pakistanis play baseball. There's been rumors of a league getting started up in the Middle East, a professional baseball league that would sort of tie everyone together in this one central league. And I think that's a really good idea. I think that can, like you said, help mend political situations, but also just put the rest of the Middle East onto baseball. Because I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is actually showing people what baseball is and how to play it, just because it takes up so much space. You need to have a field that's roughly 400 feet in length, and not everybody has access to that. So I think the establishment of a central league in the Middle East would be very beneficial.
So again, I I'm sorry if I keep going back to cricket references, but that's the best, like that's the best sport I know of. I am relatively unfamiliar with all the other sports. But with Pakistan, most people, call it a one sport country because of cricket's dominance. But I was looking through again before this. When I was prepping for this, I was looking through this, and you have been compared to Wasim Akram. Do you follow cricket?
I do follow cricket. That's actually really funny you bring that up. When I saw that post, my dad called me and we were talking about that. And he said, "You don't know much about Wasim Akram, but that's a big deal being compared to him." And that was just an honor. And I think that to go back to your question about Pakistan being a one sport country, I think that if we continue in the direction that we're going in terms of baseball, I think that you could see Pakistan be a powerhouse in both cricket and baseball very, very soon.
Because I think you might be familiar, but Pakistan is known for its fast bowlers and pacers. So I think that if in my head, it was easy for me to make the connection too, because Wasim Akram also was known for his pace, and I mean, I'm sure you are too. But again, this might be a hard question to answer, so you can take it however you want to. But I know it's great to be compared to someone like Wasim Akram, but the other side of the flip side of the coin can be that there are two different sports. Cricket and baseball are entirely different. But when you're right off the bat being compared to someone like Wasim Akram, who has a legendary legacy in Pakistan, you are automatically being held to a pedestal, and especially in a country where they are not familiar with how baseball works. Like they need to understand it before that. So how do you deal with the pressure of being compared to someone who did not even play your sport and it has this legendary image in Pakistan? Is there any pressure, or do you just take it well as a compliment?
There's definitely a little bit of pressure for sure, but I think that in any sport or any high pressure field, that's just inevitable. And I think just being compared to legends of Pakistan sports history is just an honor. It really is. And sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
That's all right. That's all right. I think that was a good answer. But yeah, I think we've talked too much baseball. I'll try to make it a little fun now. Do you watch or do you follow any other games? And I think as a baseball player yourself, I like whenever you have off time, do you just watch baseball or do you watch other sports, or do you fanboy over them? Because I fangirl over cricket a lot. It takes up my entire life. I'd like to hear from you, for someone who plays a sport professionally. Which sport do you follow during off season, or is it just baseball?
I do watch a lot of baseball in my off time, just because I don't know, it's just something I've been just obsessed with ever since I was a kid. So just watching random YouTube videos of old players from when I was growing up. That always just I don't know, gets me going.
No, I can imagine, because I don't play any sport professionally, but in my free time, I'm looking up old videos from cricket. So I think if I do it, it's totally acceptable for you to do it with baseball, considering you do that for a living. But I do want to, again, I'm not too familiar with baseball, so you have to forgive me, but I do want to ask you who your role model is, like one player you think has left the biggest legacy on the sport for you, and you'd want to mirror their career path.
So one guy that I've always looked up to ever since I was really young was Randy Johnson. He was a pitcher in the early 2000s. He pitched forever. And just ever since watching him while I was growing up, I was like, yeah, this guy knows what's up. And then just as I grew into my own body, I was like, oh, I mean, I have a really similar body type to him, so I can kind of model like how I throw off of how he threw. And
Right.
I thought that was just really like a funny coincidence.
That's super cool because I think that's the kind of stuff that people would want to listen to, because again, I do not know a lot of baseball history, but I'm sure someone is listening who might be a baseball nerd, and this would have been a great fact for them. To and like whoever is listening and they're a baseball fan, there's this piece of nugget for you. But I think I've taken up a lot of your time already, so we'll try to wrap it up. Do you have any parting words or messages for the listeners before I close in?
Just one thing is I know I would, and the rest of the federation and national team would love the entire country's support in December for the Asian Championships, when we're potentially getting an automatic bid into the World Baseball Classic. At least that's what my goal is, and I believe that that sentiment is shared with everybody
Fingers
else.
crossed. Okay, thank you so much, Amir. This was great. I learned so much.
Thank you.
No, I learned so much. Full disclosure, before this interview, I was trying to, YouTube videos, 5 minutes, baseball explained, but I think you've done a better job at explaining it than those YouTube videos did. But I think this was great, and hopefully we'll catch up again after you guys do great. You guys go and win the championship in December. We'll all be praying for you and rooting for you. But yeah, like you said, please tune in, show your support. I hope this goes up before Saturday, but in case it doesn't, that's all right. But if it does, please watch Pakistan play Palestine. They're going on Saturday, which is tomorrow. While we're recording, that is. But thank you so much for listening. This was Double Wicket Maiden, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.